Hello from Chicago. The Windy City is living up to its name this week. Myself and Cian Tracey have repaired to the leafy surrounds of Washington Square Park to bring you the latest on the build-up to Ireland's big game against New Zealand this Saturday night at Soldier Field. Cian, been in the city around 24 hours now. It's your first time back since 2018 when Ireland beat Italy. The big questions, the big one, yeah. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, not a lot of people I think remember the 2018 version of Ireland being here. I know you were lucky enough to be here in 2016 and we'll have a chat about that. But yeah, I was here in 2018 for the lesser fixture, I suppose you could say, when Ireland thumped Italy. Jordan Armour scored the hat-trick. I think afterwards he was sort of saying, we want to go on and win the World Cup in 2019. Obviously that didn't quite work out too well, but it's great to be back, isn't it? It's amazing city for anyone who's been here, like anyone who's a big sports lover, which obviously both of us are. It's good as it gets, really, is it? There's live sport on pretty much every night here.
Yeah, we had a deep dish pizza to kick off the week last night. We're getting back into the swing of Chicago.
You're a big fan?
I was happy enough with it. I'm done off. I spread my wings a little bit, but I think it was interesting. As you mentioned, I was here in 2016 and we were just down with the All Blacks. Scott Robertson did his media there. I thought it was interesting that he was talking directly about 2016 and the fact that they are, even though the teams have played 10 times since, I think it is, and it's 5 each on the record, maybe that's including that game, they're really targeting, like they're talking about this as, it's up on every billboard around town as the rematch. I guess you got to sell her to something. The two teams have played each other an awful lot, but there's a relevance there for the two teams. It's a really relaxed camp down at that All Blacks hotel. They were very relaxed in 2016 in that build-up. They did loads of commercial obligations and they're going to see the Chicago Bulls tonight. But I wonder how they're going to tap into that and how relevant they're going to see it, because it's I don't know whether Ireland are going to be kind of tapping into 2016 quite the same way. It's kind of a strange dynamic for both teams, like a reference point, but one that's 9 years ago.
Yeah, and it's funny when we talk about 2016, it's always through the Irish lens, but when I was thinking back to it, I was kind of trying to put my New Zealand hat on, and you forget that, certainly I forgot that they were on an 18 game unbeaten run. So not only did that All Blacks team have the black mark against them to be the first team to lose to Ireland, they also lost that winning run, which was hugely important to them. I know from having chat to a couple of players who were involved that time that it was, that almost meant more to them than this fact that they lost to Ireland. So yeah, you're right. It was interesting, and he kind of brought it up, didn't he, Scott Robertson himself? It wasn't like that he was kind of pushed in that direction. But 2016 was amazing. You had a great piece in the Sunday Independent this weekend. You spoke to a few of the characters from it. What is it, 3 or 4 or 5? Is it players back this time? Josh Van Der
4, right? 4. I think off the top of my head. Tyke Furlong was starting his second game for Ireland that day. Gary Ringos didn't get off the bench. Henshaw started. Finlay Bealham come off the bench. Very young looking Finlay Bealham. One of the things I did as part of that prep for that piece was to watch the game in full again, and it stands up. It does, even though the game has moved on, it's still an incredible fixture, or it was an incredible game of rugby, and the way Ireland went at New Zealand from the start and kept their feet on the throat for the entire game. I think that's a template for how Ireland have gone on to beat the All Blacks in subsequent games. But it was more about the week, the feeling of being here. What made it different for the players? What made it different for the management? The fact that I think they're training in the stadium where the local football team play this time.
They're back, yeah, well, actually, sure.
Okay, which is part owned by the Carney brothers, I think. But at the time, they trained in a kind of a public park. They didn't have a big prep like they're having for this one. There was gunshots over training. It was just a very different build-up, and they really leaned into it and embraced it. They've gone back to kind of more normal prep for this one, but with that all that difference, the clubs winning the World Series, 5 million people on the streets, the magic of that. Unfortunately, the clubs were knocked out last week. We were heading to World Series. Yeah, it would have been cool to kind of catch up on it. Definitely, there's no clubs, very few clubs hats around this time, whereas last time it was all anyone was talking about. So it was really cool to relive that, but it's also cool to be back here and be reminded of the kind of sights and sounds that were so synonymous with that week. And what makes Soldier Field will always have a special place. It's a very random place for Ireland to play international rugby games in so many ways, but it'll always be a very special place in Irish rugby history. And to go back there on Saturday to play against the All Blacks in what they're building as a rematch is pretty cool, but a very different kind of setup, 2 different coaches. I know Andy Farrell was involved. And a different feel about the All Blacks. Even when they were in Dublin in November last time, you might give us a bit of colour about what it was like down there.
Yeah, when you go back to that All Blacks game back in November when they were brilliant that night, and Ireland came in pretty cold and were really poor, actually, on the back of having been really poor against France during the Six Nations as well. So it's kind of it's a bit of deja vu. I think, they're obviously coming off the back of the Rugby Championship. Didn't go great, but that night in Dublin's felt like, the lift-off for the Scott Robertson era. It probably hasn't gone as well as I think a lot of Kiwis would have hoped for. Look, his track record speaks for itself in terms of the job that he did at the Crusaders, but I think he's found the step up to Test rugby a little difficult, I think it's fair to say. Dion MacDonald, one of his assistant coaches, left not long after taking the job. Last week, the news came out that Jason Holland, who we just met at the team hotel there, is going to be leaving at the end of this tour as well. So they're certainly putting on, I think, a positive spin outwardly, but for coaches to be walking out of the All Blacks, the dream job for any New Zealand coach, doesn't really bode well, I don't think, for me. And I think Scott Robertson is under a fair bit of pressure.
I think that maybe was part of why it seemed so open. We walked in and Rico Ioane was doing an interview with the New Zealand Herald. There was one-on-ones going on all over the place. It was a much more... we don't get to go to the Ireland hotel. We're not allowed. Ireland do all their media off-site. It's very controlled. It's all group stuff. It's a very different approach. The All Blacks, we just worked in the hotel lobby there. The All Blacks were coming and going. Very chilled. But also maybe that they're definitely here to kind of grow themselves, their brand.
They understand the importance of that.
Yeah, Scott Robertson was talking about how they got to do commercial work here. They've got big sponsors in the area, that they've got to kind of keep the money coming in. They've got to grow a fan base over here. And they're kind of open and engaging on that, whereas Ireland are here to do the same. They did do a community event over the weekend before we arrived. What they'll do, their media looks very similar to what they normally do. And I think for Ireland, I guess we'll meet them tomorrow and find out how they're approaching it in terms of this just being another game. For New Zealand, there's definitely a sense they're embracing being here in Chicago. A lot of them are going to the Bulls game tonight.
Ireland were at the base game the weekend as well. Yeah, that's something to touch on. You say you're kind of business as usual almost for Ireland in terms of the prep, but they did come last Tuesday, which is a departure. They'd have spent the bones of 2 weeks here. I know you were writing about it in your newsletter today that there's a lot of resources being pumped in here in terms of the finances and moving not just the players but the backroom team, everything that goes with that. And they came early. My sense, it'd be interesting to hear what you think, is that Andy Farrell wants to do a mini preseason of sorts. I know he hasn't been with Ireland since last November, but we were chatting to Dan Sheehan for a piece a couple of weeks ago, and I was asking him, something like, be nice to have Andy Farrell back. And he's like, you know what, I haven't actually even thought like that because his voice is still so fresh in my head from the Lions tour. Yeah. So it was like 16 Ireland players. So I wonder how much of a big of a change will be. I don't think it will be as big because there was such a strong representation on the Lions tour. But clearly Andy Farrell wants to get them in camp for as long as possible.
And a couple of the Ireland players have let slip that Andy Farrell was fairly regularly in and out of their camp during his Lions sabbatical. And I think if he had a choice, he would have just coached Ireland at the Six Nations and then gone on to do the Lions. The All Blacks, just to go back to them, you've mentioned the coaching turmoil that's there. That's the kind of words that are being used in the New Zealand media. They've also had a very up and down season. I mean, they were second in the Rugby Championship. The results on paper are not all that bad. They did lose very heavily to South Africa, a record defeat, which I watched on the flight over. But you're watching it through the prism of, can Ireland replicate what South Africa are doing? And you're looking at what South Africa did, and you're like, no, Ireland don't play that way. They don't have the power to beat the scrum. They don't necessarily have the game breakers like what South Africa have. And in fairness to the South Africans, it was one of the all-time great performances that they went to. And I just don't know whether Ireland will be able to get to that pitch. Now, Robertson absolutely dismissed the notion that Ireland will be undercooked or in any way disrupted by the fact that they didn't have a summer tour. It's out.
The Lions.
We called them the Lions at one stage. He said, he was asked about, the Lions was disrupted. He said, how many Lions were the Ireland guys were on the Lions? And a journalist said 16. He goes, 16, that's not bad. Then he goes, yeah, it's hard when you play against the Lions. So he was definitely amping up the idea that the challenge ahead is essentially New Zealand against the Lions on neutral soil. That, he talked about Jordie Barrett, which I thought was interesting. I asked him about Jordie Barrett, whether they kind of mined him for information, and he wasn't shying away from the idea. He said Barrett is almost a coach ahead of his time, and he would have gleaned so much about Irish rugby and, from a stint at Leinster about all these players. And I'm sure he sped that back into the New Zealand hive mind. So that's another little angle. As I mentioned, Rico Ioane was doing an interview in the lobby. I heard him speaking to the journalist about it. His upcoming stint at Leinster. So that's another little crossover that we're all keen to see when it actually happens. So there's a couple of subplots. But the big thing for the All Blacks team is that they've lost away in Argentina. They lost at home to South Africa. They've been up and down. Their second halves haven't been great. Their set pieces have been under pressure. So this is possibly a bigger game for them than it is for Ireland, because Ireland, if it doesn't go well for them, can probably wash it off and say it's their first hit out, and they've got big games to come. Whereas New Zealand are really targeting a Grand Slam tour to finish this off at a high.
Yeah, this is what I mean about Scott Robertson being under pressure. We've both been lucky enough to spend time in New Zealand, and they don't mess around there in terms of like the knives are being sharpened already. And this is a guy who's hugely popular, and like I said, his track record speaks for itself with Crusaders. But I think when you pair it all back, and I didn't watch the South Africa match on the flight over for the exact reasons that you mentioned. I actually had downloaded their last game against Australia because I figured that the team that played that day, like the Leroy Carter, Simon Parker, relatively new faces, are most likely going to be starting again this weekend. But I'd forgotten how bad the weather was that night, and I think it was played in Perth. The weather forecast here is excellent for the week, as you can see in the background video. This is what it's going to be like for the week. So probably wasn't the best game to judge them on. But I think when you pair it all back, this All Blacks team have sensational players. You've mentioned Jordy Barrett, his brother Bo, and Ardy Surveyor, like generational talents. But I think by and large, it's not a vintage prop of All Blacks. I think there's certain positions that you're maybe looking at. You mentioned the set piece has been under pressure. They're missing two of their first choice lock, Tupou and Patrick Tupou. It sounds like Fabian Case, and so it sounds like Fabian Holland is going to come in and play with Scott Barrett, who's obviously a brilliant player, but possibly they're clearly not as strong as they would ordinarily be. I think the back row, like I mentioned, Simon Parker has come in. He's not exactly a young guy. He's been around for a while in the Super Rugby scene. And I still think they're trying to find their best team. That Will Jordan play at fullback? Does he play in the wing? I've been really impressed, I have to admit, with Leroy Carter. He came in from New Zealand Sevens. He's been a real find for them. Who knew the Sevens program would be good at producing 15s players? But
it's not starting to happen.
Joshua but yeah, like that's just a side point. But I just don't know if it's a vintage All Blacks team as outstanding as they are, super talent. What do you think? I just don't think
it's not coming together for them in the way that you'd expect from the New Zealand team. And I did, a lot of the talk and the fallout from that record defeat to South Africa was about the fact that so many of New Zealand's records have gone now. They've lost to Ireland for the first time. They didn't beat the Lions in the series. All of these, like the record Ireland at home, they lost Ireland at home. All of these things. They haven't won a World Cup now since 2015. All of these things are mounting up, and the kind of sheen of invincibility, or the veneer, or the mystique, or the aura that they always had, and that they always lean on. And first, they earn and they build. It's been chipped away one result after another, and that they've come back to the pack, and they're just one of the best teams in the world now. They're not the out and out market leaders. I mean, you couldn't argue that they're better than Springboks at home. They're not the best. The hardest game Ireland have in this window on paper is the fourth game against South Africa. It's not this game against New Zealand. Not writing off this as a contest or in any way underlining that it's a massive challenge for Ireland, who are, in a massive battle to try and get four wins out of four, which is a standard they hold themselves for. But they wouldn't be looking at this New Zealand team as something as a team to fear. Maybe they don't fear anyone anymore, but I think South Africa at the moment, he couldn't argue against them being further along in their developments. France the same. I think they're the two teams who are further.
France didn't send their full team on the tour. Some are just gone because you look at TBC then and we go on head-to-head date and find out they played last year. But yeah, I agree. So I think comfortably the Springboks are clearly the best team in the world. France looked like that was one thing that came out. I thought from last week's press conference, James Gibson Park talking about how Andy Farrell sat them down on Monday in the HBC in Dublin before they flew to Chicago on the Tuesday, and basically said this is the turning point towards the 27 World Cup. And look, I think we all understand that and we know that, but it was a bit like 2023 that Farrell is urging the Bears to sort of embrace what's coming now, because he mentioned there's new ideas coming, and I think some people would have concerns about possibly the age profile in certain positions of the Ireland team, but I think we're going to see a couple of fresh faces, like what an opportunity could be for Tommy O'Brien, for example, this weekend with Matt Hansen out injured, Hugo Keenan out injured, Jamie Osborne, you'd imagine coming in at fullback. So I think it's interesting that the Bears are now speaking outwardly, because it feels like we are sort of picking up momentum now as Australia 27 sort of comes into view in some sort.
Yeah, and look, this window we are going to get the 4 games that basically finalise your position at the World Rankings table. Ireland are pretty safe. It's top 6 for top seeding in this World Cup cycle, because the World Cup profile or the structure has changed for this tournament coming up in 2 years' time. So Ireland are not really at risk, but I don't get the sense that Andy Farrell is seeing that as a get out of jail free card. He's still going to go as strong as possible. We did get an injury update from Ireland today. Everyone's fit. Apparently, we haven't seen them yet. We haven't been to training. They've done everything behind closed doors with a few little videos coming out. It does look like Kane and Doris, you take contact in those videos. He's the one. He hasn't played all season. Neither is Jack Conan, albeit he was named to start for Leinster in that game against Munster a couple of weeks ago, as was Tommy O'Brien, who got both. He did play in South Africa. O'Brien. Do you believe them?
Well, you can only report what they're telling us. What's it, 36 players now the squad is up to, with Shane Bolton, Tom Barrett, Jimmy O'Brien having come in. So it'd be amazing if all 36 players were fit and available, and that's exactly what you want. Scott Robertson has just confirmed that all 36 All Blacks players now, as we were leaving our team hotel, they were heading off to training. So still obviously very early of the week, and that could change. But just on the Caelan Doris point, I mean, we'll find out more tomorrow, I think, at the press conference. But it'd be a huge ask, wouldn't it, to put him straight back in? I mean from the start against the All Blacks. We thought so much of this week is going to be dominated by the fact that Ireland are trying to hit a peak, or a pitch that they just haven't been at really since they played with the Lions and the New Zealand coming off the back of the Rugby Championship. Is it too much risk? Is it a necessary risk, do you think, to take compared to Caelan Doris when you have a guy like Jack Conan there, maybe give Doris 20 minutes up?
In 2016, Joe Schmidt left Sean O'Brien, Ian Henderson and Peter O'Mahony behind because they had played enough foot. And he said, you guys stay URC with your team, or was post-12 at the time, with your teams this week. And I think they all come into the 23 for the game against New Zealand 2 weeks later. So Andy Farrell's taken a different approach by bringing over Caelan Doris and Jack Conan, neither of whom have played. Doris I have more concerns about, but that he hasn't played since that Northampton semi-final all those months ago, back in May. It's a huge ask for him. Now, the Irish players do have a fairly good record of coming in cold and producing over the years. I can think of a couple of examples of Robbie Henshaw doing it. Johnny Sexton did it regularly. They do have excellent S&C coaches. But last year, Ronan Kelleher played against the All Blacks, having had very little rugby. I think he had 20 minutes against Treviso when he got injured. He looked undercooked. And Ireland in general looked undercooked. And if I was picking a team this week, and I'm obviously not, I would be looking at players who have already played well this season, who are in form, like Jack Crowley, players who are top of their game, top of their ground, who've already got a bit of minutes under their belt, rather than trying to get players who haven't played any rugby up to speed to play against an All Blacks team who, while flawed, play at a furious pace. So that's a selection dilemma for Ireland.
They're backed into a corner, though, in that regard at number 8, because, like you said, Jack Conan and Caelan Doris are the two number 8s. I know Keith Prendergast has played there, but realistically, I don't see him starting at the All Blacks this weekend. So whether it's Conan or whether it's Doris, either one hasn't played this season. And obviously, like you said, Doris hasn't played since May. In my mind, if it was a World Cup quarter-final, absolutely roll the dice. I don't know, do you need to take a risk with one of your most important players who hasn't played? You can give him 20 minutes now. Maybe that's what will happen, but I don't know. I just think it's a bit...
The smarter play is to start them. Your mind goes back to Dan Sheehan last year when he came back against the Stormers up back with serious knee injury and he exploded into life. So maybe they've been just keeping Doris on a tight leash for the last couple of weeks. Maybe he could have played for Leinster, but they've held him back. That wouldn't necessarily surprise me. And he would have captained the Lions in Australia last summer. He is one of the most important players they need. He is their captain after all. He's one of their most important players, a player that the All Blacks really respect and admire. But also, maybe they don't fear him, but he's definitely played well in games against them over the years. I'm not sure the All Blacks fear anyone necessarily.
Because that contact with your shoulder, it's very different in training, isn't it? Because obviously you're going to be minding it. But if you hit the All Blacks coming flying at you at the weekend, that's when the real test will be in terms of how it's held up. But look, obviously they would never take any, if he's not going to be 100% fit, they're not going to put him in for his own sake, because this is a huge window, isn't it? And you've touched on it. I was writing about this on Saturday. It's Ireland's toughest ever, November. We were playing the 3 top Southern Hemisphere teams. I know Japan are obviously in a bit of transition under Eddie Jones, but it's a massive amount of things.
It is, and I've been writing about it this morning in terms of what's success for this team. And the standard they've set over the last couple of years, really since 2016 and the Joe Schmidt era, is that they expect to win every game, especially in November, where 3 of those games are at home at the Aviva Stadium, where they don't lose very often. But that kind of, again, their veneer, to kind of come back to what we talked about the All Blacks, that's been chipped away. That defeat at home to France last year, hugely damaging in terms of, I'm sure, their belief levels. They haven't really played a big game together, as a full collective since that game. Andy Farrell comes back in. That's another factor. We won't hear from him until he's named the team on Thursday. But him coming back in does not bind them together, but it's still very much the same players. There are a couple of new faces, and by picking those same old faces, he's kind of saying we're going again, and the standards that we set are the standards we're looking to hit, and the standard that he set for himself and his team is that they win nearly every game. So they're going out there looking for a clean sweep this November. Scott Robertson said they're out to win a Grand Slam tour and win all the games that they have on tour. So something's got to give this weekend. It's a lofty ambition, and sometimes it comes across as arrogant that Ireland are held to such a high standard, that there's such expectation around this team. But I feel like they'll build that for themselves.
Very internal expectations. Like, I mean, it's all well and good us saying it on the outside, our supporters expecting it, but that's absolutely what they demand of themselves. And we know that Andy Farrell is a no excuses guy, and that's something I think Byrne was speaking about last week, and you saw how well he came back in the Munster game. So there was no excuses for him in terms of, like, he came back, he had elbow surgery, but he hit the ground running. So that's they'll expect. I think Farrell will naturally be concerned that so many of his Leinster guys were so slow out of the blocks in that Munster game. But if you want to take the glass half full approach, at least they sort of rid its pank of the dirty beezos, for want of a better phrase, you know what I mean? Whereas now they've had that game, they know that they need to be a hell of a lot better, because if they pitch up in anything like the Leinster Bears pitched up against Munster at Croke Park, they'll lose their unbeaten record in Soldier Fields, which they haven't lost their either 100% record.
Absolutely, it's one to consider. Well, tomorrow we'll bring you news from the Ireland camp. We'll have a little chat about the Ireland team selection that Andy Farrell's weighing up for Thursday. We'll get the latest injury news as well from their press conference. But for now, it's goodbye from Chicago.